Hello.
Hey everyone.
That stunning example of masculinity is Rafe Judkins.
I'm the showrunner of the Wheel of Time TV series.
Yes, he's the person responsible. And welcome to JordanCon, or at least the television section of it. This is like having a convention about baking cakes, but instead deciding to focus on the single piece of feces that someone's brought in outside off the street and decided to try and flog to people, based purely on the fact that it's technically edible.
Because we can't be there, we've tried to answer some of your burning questions, give you some information about what we're doing with Season 2.
Yes, folks, these are Rafe Judkins' most burning questions for Season 2, and if you've seen Season 1, you can imagine the seventh circle of hell they're about to enter. Burning questions like this. Which orifice are characters going to stick their dangly bits in next? And this is important information that I absolutely must know. The only time I care what anyone does with their genitals is if they're pointing them at mine, because largely it's a private life, and it's called that because it should be private, therefore I shouldn't even know about it, let alone be required to care. So why am I supposed to care about a character that doesn't exist, with a private life that can't exist, which even if it did exist, I wouldn't know about because it was meant to remain private? I'm not exactly sure. But what I do know is that's not enough for Rafe Judkins.
Dominantly in the show have been trying to take things that were suggested or hinted at and sort of expanding on them, or taking things that we don't know what the relationship is between those two people and giving them something. That's what we'll continue to do with the show the whole way through the series.
So in other words, we're going to look for things that we can twist and then twist it that way, just like we did with Swan Sanche. And then for the other things that don't have it, we're going to add it into them as well. Yes, if it wasn't added in the very small text, which it is winging the Wheel of Time, you know, the 4.4 million words, if it wasn't explained in that, it's clearly so vital to the story that it definitely needs to be added into the series and will clearly improve the story overall. Because that's definitely what he cares about, not trying to make as many people bang as physically possible. I mean, he can try and make it sound like it's some deep and meaningful impact on the world.
More of the emotional history of some of those characters.
But really, it's because of such sad little two-dimensional lives that the only thing they can physically care about is what they physically do. Yes, folks, Rafe thinks that the greatest thing you can explore about a character is which part of their bodies actually achieve friction and how. The greatest story ever told, folks.
First piece of news, and it's the casting of my favorite character in the books, Aviendha.
No, I would never even consider bringing into doubt or question that Aviendha is his favourite character, but it does mean that as she is, he will know all about the Aiel and Aviendha herself, and the Aiel are very recognisable through their unusual height, pale eyes, and light-coloured hair. These people would have had a tan because they're living in the desert, but that's as far as it goes. And the aesthetic look of the Aiel is as important as any other region in the Wheel of Time. It's integral to the story. It's brought up through various different points, and it's vital that these people are recognised. The very fact that these are pale gingers in a desert means that you instantly know something has gone wrong here. This isn't a normal evolution of people which have evolved to fit an environment. These people were forced here. It's not normal or natural for them to be here. And so even if you weren't told in the story, you would recognize at almost a subconscious level that there was an extra layer of mystery here, and it does contribute to the characters and this group as a whole. This goes beyond just recognizing aesthetic look of a book. This is actually vital to the plot. And you would only change this if you didn't like the books at all and thought they must be destroyed, because you're attacking the foundational part of what makes up the story itself. And without the foundation, everything else comes crumbling down. Now, Aviendha herself is described as tall, athletically built with ample curves. Her eyes are blue-green with dark reddish hair, and while it used to be short, she's now grown it out. There are also various different attempts at fan art of her, but, as Bounding Into Comics found, Robert Jordan also suggested people that he would like to play those characters, and this is the actual one that he thought of Aviendha. As you can see, absolutely stunning, still very feminine, but would have looked great in the role. But I'm just a guy in his front room, and I knew all that, or could easily look it up in a few minutes to confirm what I thought already. But Rafe Judkins has millions under his control to get all of this stuff right. And this is his favourite character, so obviously he's going to nail it bang on, because he really cares about Aviendha and the fans and the books. That's at the forefront of his mind. So let's see who he cast, because if he loves the franchise that much, obviously, this is going to be good.
That the role of Aviendha will be played on Wheel of Time by the amazing actress Ayoola Smart.
Honestly, it's like playing a game of Spot the Difference, isn't it? And doesn't have me at all considering whether I look more like Aviendha.
Everyone, start Googling her now.
I mean, if you insist, she's been part of 17 episodes of television across a few different series. I'm sure that actually means that you couldn't possibly have found an actress that was more qualified to her that also actually looked even remotely like the character themselves, and that should be important to you and Amazon. By Amazon's own rules, as Bounding Into Comics actually points out, this breaks your own inclusion policy for the studio, which says casting actors whose identity aligns with the character they will be playing has to be followed. And I think we can say that this absolutely 100% breaks that. Not that anyone cares, because that's not the point of the policy in the first place, is it? I mean, it's a nice shield to use against logic and reason and fans, but it's immediately discarded the moment it goes against your twisted ideological vision. I mean, personally, if I was a company, I would be hiring people that are actually going to make me money, rather than put into place something that was absolutely going to destroy my company. But hey, Amazon, it's your HR department and your choice. At some point, you're going to have to realize that you might actually have to start hiring people of talent, but until then, we're left with Rafe Judkins. You know Rafe Judkins, the guy who said he didn't like Rand's personality in book 2, so he was just going to write him a new one. So, you know, Rand actually doesn't exist in the Wheel of Time TV series. And the guy who says that he's just going to turn various different characters because he can. And although admittedly he doesn't seem to be doing it to Perrin and Lan, he does seem to be doing it to Perrin and Rand. And I don't know, he says it's to annoy the fans, but it really doesn't bother me at all. Because, like I say, Rand isn't Rand because you've completely rewritten him. And this isn't even the Wheel of Time. It's just a mess that you've stamped a logo on. And if you want to know the great thing about canon, you actually can't make something canon just because you bought the rights. That's actually something the fans can gatekeep. And gatekeep this I am. There's a weird and wonderful idea going around at the moment that somehow perception can alter reality. But the great thing about canon is that's actually true. If we don't let it in, then it ain't in. If you had to be another character in the Wheel of Time, who would it be?
I would be Lan.
Oh, I can see why, because you actually want to play a man in the show for once, instead of a crying, cowardly, emotional little puss who seems to have the IQ of a spoon.
I think there's a similarity in his quiet, reserved stoicism that Perrin also has.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. You're describing Perrin from the books, although that's not the character you played, and I can fully understand why you would be ashamed to describe your character in the show. I'd be ashamed to play that role too. But as that is the character you play, Lan doesn't exactly fit your skill set. Maybe you could play Lila? What has been your favourite part of bringing Liandrin to life?
The writers have created a really sort of layered interpretation of her. I think she's very different from how people might have seen her in the books.
So she's not Liandrin, confirmed, because the only Liandrin is the one from the books.
There's always something very hidden and deeper to the characters, what you might think of them originally. There's a deeper and a darker side to Liandrin.
I don't know what you think you're doing, but have some restraint, woman. What's your favourite aspect of your character?
Probably his gullibleness.
It's all a bit inconsequential, isn't it, considering you're already dead and there's absolutely no physical way in the universe you could survive getting stabbed by that dagger. That's the point of that dagger. Of course, we all know in Season 2 they're just going to invent a way for him to get cured of it, even though it's physically impossible. But that's because they're talentless hacks and it's not like they care about the law. What's your favourite behind-the-scenes story?
Zoe and Maddie are literally sisters, and they're always talking, and they've made up their own language. I had to go from the airport to our hotel with them, which was like 3 hours, and they wouldn't stop talking. They're like,
are you sure they've actually made up their own language? Because it sounds more like they're mentally deficient. What was it like filming the scene in the hall with all of the different sitters?
An amazing scene to play. It was the first time we'd all convened in the White Tower.
Yes, all of the Aes Sedai got together and synchronized.
It was so epic, and of course it's just women.
Is that a selling point?
Which is just fantastic to have that opportunity to play with different, well, just actresses really.
Oh, I mean, that's me told. How on earth could I fight that logic?
I mean, I love playing with actors as well, but it's unusual to have so many female voices in one room.
Yes, but how do you think those actors portrayed those characters in that scene?
And extremely powerful voices in one room at the same time.
Oh, so you did realise that all of those actors portrayed themselves as complete power-hungry psychopaths then, and thus destroyed the image of the White Tower and every Aes Sedai across the entire Wheel of Time TV series from now on into the future. These people were tyrants. Girl power!
And say, oh my gosh, I just so enjoyed that today. Felt like being in a stage production, collective a group of actors together is always where you make your best work.
Otherwise known as a TV series or a movie or any work of production at all which isn't a one-man show. I kind of feel like she was trying to shove her tongue so far up them that she kind of lost her way of where she was going with that speech. They ask about Loial's costume, but that's not the part of the answer I'm interested in.
Very much a collaborative process. The showrunner, Rafe, director Sally, all the heads of departments are trying to stay as truthful to the books as possible, but also creating a brand new character for new viewers.
Why would you make a new character for new viewers? The old character is new for the new viewers. They've never seen him before. And all of the actual fans which have followed the series before, you know, the reason why you bought the IP in the first place, they want the original character because he's the only character that can exist. There is no new character because that would be an entirely new thing for new property and a new universe which can't physically exist in the current IP because it never did. And the only reason you do this is either because you can't stand the original work because you despise it and think you can fix it for the 21st century, or you're all arrogant and you think you know better than one of the greatest works of fantasy that's ever been created. And that would only happen if you were completely ignorant and talentless, because that means that you don't know what you don't know and are incapable of comparing yourself against an objective standard of quality. The issue you've got is the fans can. Just because the writers have spent their time covering themselves in their own feces and can no longer smell it, doesn't mean that all of the audience can't. What would your favorite costume to design and why?
Specifically, you know, Moraine, of course, and the 5 heroes, they took a lot of thought.
Right. Yeah, I think we can definitely see where the budget went. How did you approach everyone banging? And are we gonna get even more banging in the other series? I can answer this one for him. That never happened. As far as I'm aware, I can't remember a single relationship that actually happened in. There were places where it was one person to one person, and then on one side of that, the person would switch. So it was like one person to many people. But those people were never with each other. It was always on a one-on-one basis. And as far as I'm aware, this was actually quite common throughout history of this kind of period, is that a leader or a king would be with multiple people, but those people would never be with other people. That's how it worked. That was the power dynamic. But of course, this doesn't fit Rafe's worldview. It's rather problematic, you see, and so it must be changed, because Rafe despises the Wheel of Time and the principles and values upon which it is built.
Approach to any other relationships on the show and understand what they feel and why they do the things that they do.
Why do these people do what they do? Why can no one in the series keep it in their trousers? You've got Swan and Moraine, who are literally trying to work out how to save the world from destruction from an evil force. And Moraine's like, yeah, I know, I really should be focused on my mission, but I'm just really hungry. I have this incredible craving for a fish taco.
And so, you know, you see a lot more actually in season 2 of one of those relationships, the Alana, Maxim, and Ivan relationship. And we get to delve into more of that and understand a little bit more how those 3 parts fit together.
Oh, look, I don't think it's that complicated. You've already bigged up friction as if it was some amazing, incredible thing that you just had to explore in the series for your own sense of spirituality. But now, you want to show us how they fit together? I mean, it's really just not that complicated, is it? It's not like we need a diagram or some kind of visual representation. Which change in the move from page to screen have you received the most positive feedback about? We daren't ask him the other side of that question.
It's been amazing the amount of positive feedback we've received on a lot of the changes.
Even he's surprised that there's enough people who haven't read the books and are completely ideologically obsessed that they could actually stomach this show.
You know, we had to keep this show on the air so that we can make it to the end of the story.
Yeah, good luck with that, mate.
And I think to do that, you have to show off the best parts of the Wheel of Time series right there in the first season.
It's not Rand, Matt, Perrin, no. Girl power! If you could pick any TV show to have a crossover event with the Wheel of Time, what would it be?
I would just choose something that I love. So I'd love to have a Buffy the Vampire Slayer musical crossover episode with the Wheel of Time.
Rafe never disappoints me with his creative talents to always come up with the exact worst answer he could physically come up with and just create the perfect version of hell. What are you most looking forward to the fans experiencing in season 2?
Tried to take a chance in this season to spend time with each of the characters individually. I'm most excited about both book fans, but also people who don't know the books as well, to be able to spend time with each of these characters, see what they're like on their own, people to just get to know them better.
He's incredibly excited for you to get to know the characters in this TV series, especially if you read the books, because these are nothing like the ones in the books. In fact, they're not even the actual characters they're meant to be. They're just characters that he's written and given entirely new personalities, entirely new looks, and then just plonked on a name, and you're supposed to think this is the Wheel of Time. At this point, we just go completely mask off, and he's like, I can't wait for you to get to know all of these fantasy characters I've just made up, because obviously none of you would want to see any of these characters, unless I'd cannibalized another IP, which actually has fans and respect. In 5 words or less, how can you tease season 2 for us?
We are going to Falm.
Oh, fuck. And there you have it, the highlights of JordanCon. Sure, there were other questions, but these were the ones which seemed most abominable. If you thought that Season 2 was going to go better, assuage yourself of that opinion. Sure, Season 2 has a bigger budget, but you only have to look at Season 1 to see that they didn't exactly spend the money well the first time, so they're just going to waste even more this one. You'll spend more time with the characters on an individual basis, but there's still going to be these weird new things and not the actual characters from the books, because this isn't even the same IP. And we're going full steam ahead down the twisted message route, so this isn't going to be a show which is based around the idea of entertainment. No, this is meant to educate you on the correct way of being, and all of that is going to be wrapped up in this delicious little bundle of absolutely abysmal writing. Sure, I have to admit that the writing here wasn't as bad as it has been in Halo, but that's not really anything to shout about. And I think the only positive out of all of JordanCon is like, well, obviously we had to get enough viewers so that this series can reach the end and we can complete our story. And if there's one little light at the end of the tunnel, it's that we probably won't make that unless Amazon is just willing to continue to burn money and gain nothing in return. Because in that case, the light at the end of the tunnel is just an oncoming train. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What did you think of their questions and responses at JordanCon? What do you think will happen in Wheel of Time Season 2? And do you think it'll be an improvement or just continue the downward decline? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe, more videos like this in the future. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
And then another funny moment always makes me laugh when we're all in the White Tower and we're all like swanning about in our costumes, and it reminds me what it might be like if an alternative streaming version of the Wheel of Time would be called Aes Sedai High, where we're all sort of mean girls in the White Tower and it's Aes Sedai High. We're all sort of like swishing about, being powerful.